Why others are struggling is because LLM know words, not chemistry. So if you talk about smiles-based generation, you're playing with natural language technologies on smiles or on selfies or on fingerprints, and but it does not take into account the chemistry, the building blocks, the reactant, the reagents. So at the end of the day, you will maybe able to generate novel molecules like this one or this one using this type of approach. But can you make these molecules? Maybe, but I can guarantee that this piece here will be very difficult to introduce. Characters permutation versus navigating to the space of ingredients, building blocks, and reaction provide a totally different type of outputs, and we'll be able to show you that soon. If we go to the literatures and if we have a look to what has been published, a very nice paper published in Nature in 2024 report 43 methods published so far describing how we can use GenAI to imaging new molecules. If you go to this paper, you can see that in all methods, we have either graph-based GenAI, smile-based, fingerprints, selfies, different type of I would say, representation, which does not take into account synthetic feasibilities. All those type of molecular representation are not taken into account available building blocks, available synthetic transformation, and even synthetic feasibility. So at the end of the day, whatever the method here is, you will generate molecules without controlling synthetic feasibility. So you can rapidly be trapped in a digital space, I would say, and you will never be able to go to the lab. And I think, and this is a topic of today, and to present our GenAI at Iktos and what sets Iktos apart is that we have been able to develop a chemistry-driven, synthesis-aware generative design technology. To see how our GenAI perform compared to existing GenAI published. One very famous is Reinvent 4, published by AstraZeneca, which is very well maintained, which cover a lot of use case like growing, linking, etc. So it's really a good GenAI to compare with our system because I believe that this Reinvent 4 is the best open source GenAI you can find. So it was a very good algorithm to compare with our Iktos GenAI. So we say, okay, let's take complex targets, synthetically difficult, with some interesting motif like macrocycles or complex side chains or complex central scaffold. And we try to ask the GenAI to be able to find those molecules back using a simple Tanimoto similarity. So we tried three different use cases. The first one is we asked those GenAI to find those molecules back without any information of the starting point. So the GenAI starts from nowhere and it has to understand by itself using a simple Tanimoto similarity to find the final molecules. As you may understand, a similarity of one means that the GenAI has been able to recover the molecules. Another use case was given a starting fragment and starting from here, try to grow the molecules to find back the expected molecules. And the final use case was a fragment linking. You give one fragment on the right, one fragment on the left, and you try to see if you can find the molecules. As you can see against all those molecules I just showed before, Makya outperformed Reinvent in all those tasks. We have been able to retrieve the final molecules very often, and even in very complex tasks, for instance, with lorlatinib, which is a macrocycle, Reinvent is not able to generate microcycles, so it stays very low in terms of Tanimoto similarity, but Makya has been able to understand the sequence of action with the final macrocyclization, which gives a Tanimoto of 1. So it's very interesting to see this type of behavior again when you navigate into this chemical space of reaction, you make bigger jump and you can converge faster. So it's much more sample efficient. We tried another use case where we wanted to see in case of lead optimization. So we took a data set of 463 molecules published by Boehringer Ingelheim and measured on PI3K and mTOR, which are two kinases. We built QSAR models and we asked GenAI, can you maximize the QED, which is the estimated drug likeness, the similarity of the initial data set. We wanted as well to maximize two QSAR models. We wanted to keep as well the main scaffold of that series, like in a traditional use case when the chemists want to keep some part of the molecules. And in post-processing, for the top 500 molecules, we compute the synthetic feasibility score, which is a retrosynthesis score. It's a true retrosynthesis. It's not an heuristic. We have published how we apply R score by computing retrosynthesis. So in Makya, basically, we ask to start from this chloro and to grow in that direction. And in Reinvent, you can ask the same. Of course, in Reinvent, you don't have the synthetic feasibility notion. So you just put a star here and it will start growing from here. And what we saw is that the top 500 molecules against this multi-parametric fitness function, we compare the synthetic feasibility and we saw that Iktos GenAI produced 95% of molecules with a very good retrosynthetic feasibility score. So in 85% of the case, Iktos molecules are feasible, contrary to Reinvent where it's in 50% of the case. On top of that, when you count the scaffold, so more or less the diversity, you can see that in Reinvent, you have only 29 different scaffold compared to Iktos, where we have 81 scaffold. If you also compare scaffold similarity pairwise similarity, you can see that you have high similarity and a lower similarity, showing that we find more scaffold and more diverse. And the same if you compare molecular similarity, we have a lower similarity compared to Reinvent. Again, another very interesting use case is to use structure-based information. So in that case, let's say that we are in a discovery phase and we want to use structure-based information. So in that case, we took three different type of targets, PIM1, ARC2, TMRD, and we wanted to maximize a docking score. In that case, we use Autodoc VINA, but also a contact score, which is, as Stephanie explained, fingerprint interaction fingerprint. So basically, you can ask to the system that you want to interact with key amino acid in the pocket. For those three projects, we decided to use fragment growing. So we start from one exit vector and ask to generate in that direction from bromine here and boronic acid in this position. Again, maximizing a reward function. In Reinvent, you just put a star here, here, and here, and Reinvent as well is able to grow. What is very interesting is that on the PIM1 use case, if you take the top 500 molecules with the best docking score, in PIM1, Reinvent works pretty well, and we obtain similar synthetic feasibility. In ARC2, we see a very high drop in terms of synthetic feasibility because out of the 500 top molecules, only 99, so almost 100 were feasible. And it's a bit better on TRMD, but still half of the molecules are not feasible. So in most of the case, we are able to generate very feasible molecules. If we focus on the ARC2 example, where we start from this pyridine here, so of course you see the pyridine everywhere because it is the starting point we ask. As you can see, we have different type of scaffold and families of branches, And as you can see, very nice score, 0.90, 0.972, 0.964, etc., etc. So very good score. And if you take the best reinvent molecules, as you can see, the score is lower, 0.852. But also we get these crazy microcycles, which are almost impossible to make and not very drug-like. If you compare the diversity again on the three use cases, we have much more diversity because we have a lower pairwise Tanimoto similarity and also higher number of scaffold. And if you apply a t-SNE here, we can see that we explore a much bigger chemical space compared to Raven. So again, when you play with smiles during your generation, you play in small transformation, you play in character permutation, and it's different where you play with reaction because you are able to make bigger jump into the chemical space because you play with building blocks and reaction. And in all our benchmark, we can clearly see the difference between a sequence-based GenAI versus a reaction-based GenAI.